In this video, we're talking all about Universal Orlando. We're talking about what Universal can do to beef up Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios once Epic Universe opens. We're going to break it down. We're breaking out the maps, the Google Maps. We're going to analyze it, talk about it. Up next, I got the Italiano and Slimer with me today. Let's Okay, hold on, everybody. Hold on, everybody. I actually made a fatal mistake right here. I put up the wrong intro. Let's do that again, shall we?
Much better.
Much better. Yes, much better. Much in line with the theme today of Universal Orlando. We're going to talk about it, break it down. But before we do, George, the Italiano, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me back on. It's always a good time chatting the news and speculation with you fellas, whether it's Disney, Universal, studio stuff, anything in the entertainment industry. It's always a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. You can let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go, Sticky George, and we have the one, the only Slimer. Welcome back, Slimer.
Thanks for having me back. And I just had some Italian for dinner to get ready for this podcast. You got to be in the right mindset when you're dealing with these guys here. But I really appreciate you having me back on. Halloween Horror Nights gave me another break tonight. I don't have to be in the Ghostbusters house scaring folks again. So I'm, where else would I rather be than right here in Orange Grove 55 talking Universal, talking parks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to have you on, Slimer. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's talk a little Universal. Let me go ahead and speaking of these parks, let's go ahead and bring up the maps. We're gonna do it how we do it with the Disney stuff. We're gonna do Google. We're gonna Google Map it, you guys. Okay, so it's no secret, Epic Universe is opening less than a year now. Next summer, some people are saying next spring. So we're just a few months out now of Epic Universe opening. These two parks, and I've said it before on many videos, that there's been additions, there's been new stuff added, but Universal has really put all eggs in the Epic Universe basket, so to speak. And these parks have there haven't really been like a huge amount of investing in these two parks. Last big thing I believe was like Diagon Alley, which was now coming up like on a decade ago, right? So we're gonna kind of discuss what Universal can do once Epic opens and that park is full steam ahead. What can they do to improve both of these parks? So I guess we'll start with the studio park. Slimer, where's your headspace at with this one, brother? What would be the first thing you would do? You work at Universal. Epic is open. Epic is a roaring success. Things are going good over there. What do you do for the studio park to bolster interest in this one again?
Yeah, so Universal's got some momentum right now when it comes to the original IP that they opened up the park with, or some of the IP that they introduced to the park shortly thereafter. They've been running on a winning streak lately with Ghostbusters, E.T., Back to the Future. They've incorporated into the summer tribute store in a very successful way. And then additionally, they also had parade floats in the Mega Movie Parade, which is still ongoing. And that's been very successful as well. I mean, when that parade launched, I've never seen so many people talk about a stinking parade. You know what I mean? There's this parade, the Spectrum Magic. Then you have the other night parades that are out there right now, which are going to bring a lot of discussion to the space again. But the reason that it was so popular was because they had a Back to the Future float and they had a Ghostbusters float. So on that note, I think that what Universal Studios can do is to continue bringing back the IP that people love and finding creative ways to merchandise it. One of the things that Jay and I were actually discussing in a DM a couple of days ago was how Back to the Future, for example, hasn't been quite as merchandisable as some of the other IPs, Ghostbuster, namely, and probably Jaws. But there are more creative ways to merchandise these old IPs now. I would probably, if I were Universal Studios and I wanted to reinvigorate this park and get it ready for, the post 2026 boom of Epic Universe and 2025, but 2026 is going to be the first full year that park's going to be open. I would bring Back to the Future and I would replace the Simpsons. And I know it sounds crazy, and people would say, "Wow, you can never do that," and they never bring back old attractions. I think that this is a pretty different case in that the 1980s and 90s are extremely popular amongst younger folks nowadays.
Oh yeah,
and Back to the Future still hasn't lost its luster with the older crowd either. I mean, your age, George's age, my age. I mean, we fall squarely within the people that saw Back to the Future either the first year it opened or like 5 to 10 years after the movie came out. So it was very relevant to all of our childhoods, and so there's a lot of built-up nostalgia, and we have a childhood connection to this property. And when they removed it, it was mid-2000s. The 90s and 80s weren't popular in the 2000s. I mean, this was, The Matrix was the big thing. That was the big kahuna. It's 2024, and, the 80s are back in again, and sort of the early 90s. And, if they brought Back to the Future, replaced the Simpsons with it, made that land look fresh, do like a 2.0 version that, is bigger, better, more Back to the Future. Maybe brought in, the Cafe 80s to replace Moe's Tavern. And then brought in like a hoverboard store where you could build your own hoverboard.
Dude.
I think that they would crack the code, and they would put that park one step closer to the kind of classic 1990s back Universal Studios that it was back in its heyday.
And also, we do have to remember, you bring up some fantastic points. I love your idea about building your own hoverboard, by the way. I mean, that is incredible. But here's the other thing, too, that you don't realize. The Simpsons situation, we'll call it that, a situation that happened where they removed Back to the Future for that property happened pre-Comcast. And that's another element here. I think that move was done under worse management, because Comcast has done a really good job with Universal. You know what I'm saying? They've actually really tried to, as much as they can, sort of foster a very Disney-like sort of flywheel, and they've been good at it, right? They're building. So Comcast understands this better than the previous management obviously did. I honestly, when people tell you, Slimer, oh, well, it's impossible, they're not going to bring Back to the Future back. Why wouldn't they? Comcast didn't make that decision. Some other leadership team did. Comcast understands the nostalgia. That's why we see, like you say, the Back to the Future float. That's why we see the Jaws float. That's why we see all those properties represented in the new what's that water show? Cinesational. Obviously, Comcast is leaning into that nostalgia. I wouldn't be surprised if it does come back. And here's the other thing too: the technology for that stuff has improved a lot since they got rid of it back in like 2008-ish. I think it was around there. I mean, come on, we're talking like, almost 20 years ago at this point. So I think there's a ton of potential there. I wouldn't discount it. And another thing too, when fans tell you that's impossible, you can't do it. I've been in this community a long time, and I hear a lot of that in the Disney community. Oh, they can't do that. They can't build anything behind the Rivers of America and the petting zoo because there's backstage back there that they need, and they can't take it down. And then Disney finds a way and they take it down and they build a 14-acre Star Wars land there, right? So nothing is impossible. And Comcast has a good head on their shoulders. They understand the nostalgia element of this whole equation. I would love it. What say you, Italiano?
Well, and this also goes back to the fact when they added The Simpsons into Universal before Disney acquired Fox and the Fox properties.
Right.
So now anything of merchandise wise, that gets sold of The Simpsons, Disney gets a cut of that. And by removing the Simpsons out of the equation for Universal, that also cuts ties to giving any kind of retribution to Disney from Universal's standpoint.
Right.
Now, when it comes to adding the older intellectual properties back into Universal Studios, whether it's in Orlando or in Hollywood, you know, you have Back to the Future, you have Jaws, you have I'm just giving off like all the classics, E.T., Earthquake, King Kong. A lot of times we say on this channel, you can't keep the parks, primarily when it comes to Disney, you can't keep them in a stagnant type of frame where you have to move on, you have to change, you have to upgrade, you have to move on. With Universal, because they are very limited to what their IP is, it's a completely different beast than what Disney is. So I feel for Universal, for them to move forward, they got to move back into the past. No pun intended. By utilizing that strong IP of Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Jaws. I'm still pissed off the fact that I do love Diagon Alley. I think it's very immersive and everything. I just wish that they didn't have to get rid of Jaws in order to, and I get it. It was a very complex ride, you know, with the water and the animatronic, and there was a lot to it, and I get that, but I'm still pissed off, just like how I am with the Great Movie Ride. But I do think with Universal, it's into their best interest to go back into the past to move forward into the future. And I feel that Back to the Future, going back into that space, obviously is a perfect fit because that's originally where it was.
Right.
And I feel like that there's a lot of talks that, you know, there's a possibility that Pokemon could be going into that spot. Now, don't get me wrong, Pokemon, very popular, one of the highest, you know, intellectual properties out there in the world. However, I don't feel that Pokemon fits well in the studios. I feel that it fits well in Islands of Adventure, but I do hope and wish moving forward, Universal just keeps the studios to that core Universal Studio status with like those original IPs that they started the park at. I think they're a bigger hit than adding like what they could potentially add in with Pokemon, Lord of the Rings, Fast and the Furious. Now with Lord of the Rings, again, I think that would fit more into like Epic Universe or what have you. Those kind of intellectual properties, they need to be in other parks. For the studios, it needs to be based off of what brought Universal as a studio park.
I agree. I agree with you 100%, George. I like your statement there too. Like the through line needs to be, in order for Universal Studios to move forward, it needs to go back into the past, because that's exactly where the soul of the park is. And it lost its identity there. Once prior to Comcast taking it over, and Comcast has a clear hold on what it is that made Universal Studios great. I mean, like, look, everybody knows the greatest era of Universal Studios Florida was the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a question. It is a certainty. And, look at what's going on with Halloween Horror Nights 33 right now. The two most popular houses by far on social media is Ghostbusters and Insidious. I mean, obviously Insidious is a lot newer, but everybody's like, yeah, like Ghostbusters is awesome. It's the most marketable. Everybody's talking about the marshmallow, the little mini Stay Puft marshmallows. You look at the social media posts, it's all Ghostbusters right now. Mixed in with a couple other houses that, I'm not trying to take anything away from the other houses, but like as far as like what my feed shows, it's Ghostbusters. Now, here's what I would also add to Universal Studios when it comes to reinvigorating this park, making it ready for guests to come back and not just go to Epic, but really hit Universal Studios hard. And that's going to be a Beetlejuice ride to replace Ride Rockit.
Okay, so we'll come back to the Simpsons thing in a second. That's interesting that you brought that up, Slimer, because I was actually going to bring this up too. This is the elephant in the room, this Ride Rockit. This is something that I think fans are asking for to get removed. From what I understand, not only is it like hideous, but it also breaks down a lot from what I understand. So you would replace this attraction with a Beetlejuice attraction, and what kind of ride would it be?
They can either go with the dark ride, an omnimover style attraction to kind of get that haunted mansion market,
Smart.
or they can go with a Vekoma style roller coaster.
I would. I mean, I would go. Honestly, I would do the. I like your haunted mansion idea because that could be Universal's haunted mansion, so to speak. And you have a real opportunity right now because this Jenna Ortega movie is probably going to do numbers. Probably going to do really, really well. She's really a hot. What's the word for
Just
it?
hot.
She's just hot. No, she's a hot actress right now. People love her. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she did very, very, very well in Wednesday. So she's very, very popular. I think this movie has a lot of potential here. There's a lot of buzz for it. If it does really well, that's your move, Universal. That's your green light to move forward with this. You do it. You build the house, the Beetlejuice house, and you have these little doom buggies going through it and stuff. Oh my gosh, Slimer, that's incredible. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What about you, George? Would you take the Beetlejuice Haunted Mansion thing, or do you prefer just to keep Ride Rockit?
Yeah, no, that Ride Rockit has to go. It was an operational nightmare from the very beginning. I don't even know why it even lasted this long, to be honest with you. They probably wanted to try to get some of their money back, for how much that it took to build it. But I love the Beetlejuice idea. I would do like an Omni Mover or kind of like a Mystic Manor kind of notion, because you could have the house basically come alive because of like the spirit of Beetlejuice, and
Yes.
what have you. And yes, it kind of gives off that kind of like a hybrid between the Haunted Mansion and also what Encanto is going to be for Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you can
I think
utilize.
that'd be a perfect fit.
Oh yeah, and you can utilize animatronics. You should, but also projection mapping. You can have creepy stuff going on the walls, and you can do so much with this. I mean, it'd be so fun, so fun. Now, Slimer, is Beetlejuice? Forgive me, is that a Universal movie? Do you know offhand, or is it Sony?
It's Warner Brothers, but they have the rights to Beetlejuice.
For the theme park stuff,
They used
right?
to have the Beetlejuice Rockin' Graveyard Review show.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
And
I would do that.
That's another one I'd bring back too. I'd bring back the Rock and Graveyard Review. That was over there by Fast and the Furious. I didn't say that it should replace Fast and Furious simply because Fast and the Furious is such a big property. I would find, if I were Universal, I wouldn't get rid of that ride. What I would do is I would replace it with a better Fast and the Furious ride. It's too lucrative to just get rid of it all the way, simply because they did a bad interpretation of what I consider to be a very good IP, despite the fact that some of the last movies have been a little bit too bombastic. But if you look at the numbers, the movie's still big. The Fast and Furious movies still put asses in seats. So I would just find a better way to execute that and not get rid of Fast and the Furious completely, which is why I said that Beetlejuice should replace Ride Rockit, because it's the rock and roller coaster of Universal Studios. That ride system has to go, and they have plenty of space there. They can eliminate the amphitheater. They can cut into, if you're looking at this map here, they have the grassy area where people just go to sit and throw up after they drink 19 beers of Halloween Horror Nights. So I would cut into that area. I would build a new building. And yeah, I would go with a Haunted Mansion style, Mystic Manor style dark ride. Pay Michael Keaton, pay Catherine O'Hara, pay them what they need to do so they can come in and actually portray themselves in the ride. And between that and Back to the Future, I think you got Universal on lock. I think those are two very strong e-tickets that are going to bring back people in a way that I don't think Universal has done since Diagon Alley.
Now, Slimer, because we see here, we have the grassy knoll area, we have Ride Rockit. Next to it, though, we have Jimmy Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any word on this attraction? Is this staying, or if not, should it go?
Really quick, before Slimer answers that, I do have to say, I cannot believe I am saying these words right now, but I think Slimer knows where I'm going with this.
I already know what you're going to say.
When he and I were at Universal Studios, I honestly, believe it or not, I actually enjoyed my day much better than I did over at Islands of Adventure, which was completely surprising to me. And we actually did the Jimmy Fallon ride. I don't know what it is. It is one of the most ridiculous, dumbest attractions I think they could ever put into a theme park, but I absolutely fucking loved it. I don't know
Oh,
why.
wow.
I've been on it before, but for some reason, I don't know why. I just came off of that, and I looked over at Slimer. I was like, that was so bad, but why did I enjoy that?
So were you drunk?
No, I was sober, believe it or not.
That is wild. So you would vote to keep it in, I'm assuming.
I mean, I will say this. If they come up with something much better of a much better IP to utilize that space, I wouldn't bat an eyelash or shed a tear for it to go. But I would say while it's still there, I think it does its job, believe it or not.
That's interesting. Okay. So we bring Beetlejuice in here into the fold. We bring Back to the Future into the fold. You know, speaking of Back to the Future, though, Theme Park Parker here says, word on the street, Springfield, USA and the Simpsons ride are rumored to be closing at Universal Studios Florida as early as 2025 to make way for a new land for new and exciting lands. So this is fascinating. So look, this is the word on the street. This is the rumor with a capital R. That's fascinating that they're moving on this, you know, and it's a smart move. I think they know that they're not going to, obviously this isn't like this evergreen sort of contract like they have with Marvel. This thing will expire. Why not just kind of nip it in the bud now, shut it down and start on something that, you know, that you can replace it with.
The Simpsons are evergreen on television and on streaming. When it comes to a theme park environment, it's a one like baritone kind of move, and it's like once it's made, it's like you can't move forward with it.
Well, I think Jay Shear, friend of the channel, Jay Shear, he made a great point in a recent live show we did with him, where he was saying, you know, this kind of primetime television animation stuff is very cynical content, which works for nighttime sitcoms and what have you. But when you go to a theme park, you don't want to like live in the world of cynicism and like, right? It's not really an attractive thing to sort of have in a theme park environment. On top of that, I think that the design of these characters works really well on television. Not so much in like the real world though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like this is very much something that like TV is great, but like in a 3D kind of environment, it's not that interesting. I would say the same thing about Family Guy and Bob's Burgers and all these kind of shows. They're cool for TV, but like, do I want to visit these environments? Not really. You know what I'm saying? So I think Universal is making the right move here, you know. But the interesting thing too, though, is now that this is moving out, is Disney going to do a Simpsons thing in one of their parks?
That's what the talk of the chatter is. Again, not saying that Disney is going to do it, but people are questioning that notion. It's like, if the Simpsons move out of Universal, are they moving into Disney?
I hope not. Yeah. I wouldn't mind like meet and greets or like little things, but
it still feels like kind of awkward to meet Homer and Bart Simpson in a Disney park. And I know that sounds cliche, because you could have the same argument with Avatar or Star Wars or Marvel, but The Simpsons, I don't know.
But I don't feel that way about those properties. Like I've never felt weird about Star Wars being in Disney. Maybe because at Disneyland we've had Star Tours forever in Disneyland or whatever. But Star Wars, even if it wasn't in the parks, it feels like a Disney thing. It's a space fairy tale, basically, a galactic fairy tale. You know what I'm saying? It fits that Disney DNA, so to speak. I would even say Marvel fits the Disney DNA, where it's like you have princesses and pirates and superheroes. It kind of fits that realm. You know what I'm saying?
Now, when we went to D23, they had different booths, and the Simpsons were showcased. Bob Burgers was showcased. See, that was okay because you're in a convention where it's like there's different sections of the company that you can visit. You know, that environment, it fits well. But yeah, like to have a meet and greet of the characters or have a dark ride or something or other, I just think it would be a little bit too...
You know, like, yeah, it's weird. I wouldn't mind like a Simpsons bar at like Disney Springs or something, or like at downtown Disney. That would be kind of cool, you know, something fun for like nighttime, whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't really want an attraction. But supposedly they're shutting it down next year. Now, I wanted to ask you, Slimer, you brought up Fast and Furious Supercharged, which is obviously a pretty embarrassing ride. Let's be honest, one of the worst.
I'd be happy with a shawarma cart.
There we go. Yeah, that's what they should put it in there. Absolutely. But what Universal Hollywood is doing is that we're getting rid of our supercharged, and we're building the drift coaster. Do you think that Universal Florida should go in that direction? Maybe get rid of supercharged, but replace it with something just better, like a drift coaster or something along those lines?
Well, before we go on to Fast and the Furious, I did want to touch on the Simpsons being shifted out of Universal Studios super quick.
Sure.
So this is actually a smart move, and the reason it's a smart move is because on the Q3 earnings call, Universal Studios showed an over 9% drop in attendance year over year at Universal Studios. It was over 9% over at Islands of Adventure 2. Now, that could be because people are waiting for Epic Universe. I don't think that's the case. I just think that, very plain and simply, they haven't been investing in those two parks. They're putting all of their eggs in one basket into Epic Universe, and people just aren't interested in going to Universal Studios.
Right.
So now this rumor is taken on good word that they are moving the closure of this attraction forward by a whole 3 to 5 years. That's why. Okay. They can no longer afford to have this old, outdated attraction in Universal Studios, and so they got to exchange it for something that's going to that's going to sell tickets. Now, what that is versus what I think it should be, that's to be seen. Now, with regard to the Simpsons not fitting in Disney, I think there's a way they can pull the Simpsons off in Disney. So here's one of the two ways I would do it. Okay, if you want to do a smaller investment, what they could do is like a Turtle Talk with Crush style attraction. But instead of talking to Turtle, you would have somebody that sounds like Homer, or that has a voice modulator that can sound like the Simpsons characters, and you could have that, or you could do something like Monsters Laugh Floor featuring the Simpsons. I think those two would work, and only those two things would work, and I'd probably put them in Hollywood Studios.
That's a great idea. I like that. That's kind of where my mind is at too, Slimer, where with the Simpsons, it's okay to utilize them in some capacity, like what you were saying, like a laugh floor thing or whatever, or what I was suggesting, even like a Simpsons bar at like Disney Springs. Like these little kind of things are kind of cool and perfect for it. But yeah, I wouldn't, if I was Disney, I wouldn't do a land or even like a full-blown attraction on it. I think little things here and there, like what you were suggesting, Slimer, with the laugh floor thing, or like a bar or something, totally cool, totally perfect for that. Actually, what would be really funny if they did a Family Guy one, like a Family Guy laugh floor. You get Peter Griffin up there just roasting everybody. Oh man, I would die for that.
Oh my God! I just had a brainstorm. What if it's Homer? It's a show like Laugh Floor, but it's Peter Griffin and Homer Simpson.
See, I'm telling you, that would be popular. I'm telling you, that'd be very popular, very popular. So, what's your opinion on the Fast and Furious thing?
Yeah. So with the Fast and Furious thing, okay. So let's say they replace Ride Rockit with a Omnimover, Mystic Manor style attraction. Then where's your roller coaster at, right? So you're going to have to bring a roller coaster in. Otherwise, you're only going to have one, which is over in Diagon Alley, but that's not really like a roller coaster. It's on a roller coaster track. But yeah, so for your high-speed thrill, absolutely. Put some Fast and Furious in there.
Yeah. No, well said. So, okay, so I think we pretty much touched upon the studio park. I mean, do you have any thoughts, George, on and Slimer, on Men in Black? I mean, is this something that like you guys have recently been, so you're more versed in this park? Mm-hmm. Is this something that like they should keep, or is it something that maybe we should look into?
Well, it's actually funny. I actually asked Slimer this while we were there. We were actually in line, and he had a good interpretation on the future of this ride. So I'll let him take over on that one.
Go ahead, Slimer.
So Men in Black is it's the best shooter in Orlando, like by far, hands down. And so for them to remove that shooter attraction would be eliminating the best shooter out of all the parks in the biggest, in the capital of the theme park capital of the world. As far as what I would do, I'd probably just give it a refresh, incorporate some alien animatronics down there, the Men in Black headquarters, where you really don't see anything. There was something that I had said when we were riding the ride, George. I think you're trying to get me to tease it out, but I can't remember what it was. Do you remember?
I was hoping you would have remembered. Let me think. Because you said something, and because that's how you started it out. You were talking about it is the best shooter in Orlando, Florida, which I do agree with you. You know, compared to Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, even to Toy Story Mini, I don't know. It just has this kind of thrill to it where it's good for the families, but it adds like an extra kind of edginess to it where you can kind of go battle with other vehicles. And if they hit the target on your vehicle, you spin. If the aliens hit you, you spin. I thought it had something to do actually with the something with the operations of the ride itself that you had said.
Was it augmented reality?
You know, I think it might have been that.
Yeah, I'm
So,
not really,
Yeah.
not really sure. But
that would be interesting. So that'd be kind of like a Super Mario Kart kind of idea, right?
yeah, let me drink about 3 more beers, and I'm pretty sure I'll remember.
There we go. There we go. We'll come back to it. If you guys remember, we'll definitely come back to it. But yeah, so I think that we pretty much addressed this park. I mean, obviously ET is going to stay because ET is
It better stay
a national treasure. Yeah, they better don't make the same mistake we made over here in Hollywood. I'll tell you that much. We replaced ours with the Mummy. Oh, God. So this is Islands of Adventure. I will say this: Islands of Adventure is a much more attractive park from this.
Before we move over to Islands of Adventure, actually, you just reminded me. I do have something to say about the Mummy. Actually,
let's go over to the
believe it
Mummy.
or not, I actually, in comparison, enjoyed Universal Hollywood's Mummy better.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
When I
I've never heard that opinion before. That's interesting.
Because when we went on it, I think this was the first ride of the day we did. If I'm not mistaken, but
you were drunk that day, George. You can't lie to me.
I must have been. I don't know because it's but there was like a lot of like jerking and stopping in between scenes. It wasn't like a full-fledged like keep the ride going, keep it flowing, and it felt like that the vehicle was like scraping against the track and it just kept on jerking. And I don't know, it just felt like that there was no cohesiveness to the ride. And then also too, that I realized that the one in Florida starts off by taking you up a hill. So it's like, it's already setting you up for like once you get to the top, you know, this is what's going to happen. Where the one in Hollywood just makes you kind of like turn the corner and then you just shoot.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now I want to ask you guys before we go to Iowa. This is the train for the for Diagon Alley, the Harry Potter train, the Hogwarts Express. Oh, that's cool, man. I've never seen it from the air like this. This is pretty cool. It goes all the way over there. First of all, that was a brilliant idea to incorporate that connective tissue between these two parks. I mean, both creatively and financially. That was really smart. Okay, so let's go to
because it's transportation, but also an attraction within itself.
No,
I'm not even going to say an attraction. I'll say an experience because that's what it is.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, this is Universal Studios. Okay, now we're gonna move to Iowa, which I was saying like Iowa is like way more attractive from the air. I know it doesn't really matter from the air, but wow, this is a bunch of sound stages. This is actually pretty cool. I like the way Iowa looks for sure. Now for Iowa, we have a lot of stuff going on here. Slimer, what's the first thing you would tackle in this land in particular? I mean, this park in particular.
So Iowa suffers from what's called HFFA. Okay, Iowa is hot from far, but far from hot.
Oh,
it is one of those parks that has not aged gracefully. I hate to say it. You have Dr. Seuss Land, which hasn't received any real relevant updates in a very long time. They'll give it paint refreshers. They make sure that the rides operationally work. Dr. Seuss's, I forgot what the spin ride is, the dark ride one. Most of the animatronics in there are either working very poorly or don't work at all. And then once you go over to Jurassic Park, it's so 1990s. I mean, I know the park opened up in 1999, so that's not what I'm trying to say, but it hasn't kept up with what just what other parks are doing around the world when it comes to Jurassic Park, and it feels dated. Jurassic Park River Adventure has very poor animatronic performance. The majority of the animatronics in the river portion do not work. It no longer has the Jeep that falls down the top of the building. The the Velociraptor cage that supposedly stops from falling on you, that works intermittently. And then the T-Rex at the very end, he's just he's a shell of himself when it comes to how he performed when the park first opened. So there's that. And then there's the fact that, like I said, it just doesn't match Jurassic World, which is all but supplanted Jurassic Park by now. I mean, like, Jurassic World has been around for so long, there's kids that don't even remember Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? Like, they only know about Jurassic Park because it was mentioned in the Jurassic World buildings. And then you have the Lost Continent, which looks beautiful, nothing in it. The only thing you can do there is eat food and mythos. So,
and that's a pretty big land. This is it right here, right? This whole thing right here.
Yeah, it is an entire land. It is an entire land within Islands of Adventure.
And and you can't do anything else on that in this whole property except for that Mythos restaurant.
Yep, that's it.
Basically.
So this park, I should say, it's suffering from a lack of necessary capital investment. If Disney had a park like this, there would be there would be a lot of self-deletions within people within this Twitter community. I'm like, yeah, this is absurd. I mean, and I'm surprised that Universal fans, like hardcore Universal fans, aren't more upset about this. But I think Universal fans are also easier to please. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's also, too, that Universal fans don't like to admit when something needs to be reworked at Universal.
But the problem with that, though, is that you encourage more behavior. Like, for example, from what you were just laying out, Slimer, you have a restaurant in this entire land, which looks like a sizable area. Okay, that's the only thing open. You were saying Seuss Landing, some of the stuff on that in the dark rides and stuff, not in good condition. It's really looking kind of rough, right?
Yeah.
Well, if the fans held Universal more accountable, it probably wouldn't get this bad. I think that because there is so much kind of apologizing and sort of like brushing under the rug. This is one thing I've talked about so many times on the channel, where it's like a lot of fans, what they do, and this is not good for Universal, mind you. This is actually very, very detrimental to their parks. But what they do is, like, when they do something good, and they do a lot of good, it's, oh, see, they're on par with Disney, right? But then when they do something bad, or like there's upkeep issues, or something doesn't go quite right, or it's not really, something that's kind of like bad show or what have you, then we fall back on, well, they're not Disney, we hold them to a lower standard. For me, this is basically a trap where no matter what Universal does, it's okay. So when they're good, they're Disney, they're equals. When they're bad, well, they're not equals. So why are you holding them to the same standard? It's a way that they're never held accountable. You know what I'm saying? So if we're going to say Universal is on Disney's level, which in my opinion, with the product they can produce, the good stuff, they are on Disney's level in a lot of ways. The Harry Potter stuff, what we're seeing over there with Harry Potter, and even like the Dark Universe stuff, what we're seeing, that's very, that's Disney. I mean, there's not much difference, but unfortunately, a lot of fans, they kind of want to vacillate between, well, they're on their level when they're good, they're not when they're bad, and it's just always kind of dodging and weaving to sort of make excuses. And I don't think it's good for Universal. When these companies feel the heat from their fan base, it does make a difference. I'm not saying these multinational companies are going to buckle every single time. Disney doesn't, that's for sure. But it does make an impact to some degree. Look at the D23 Expo. What was the first thing, George, when we were in that Honda Center? What did Josh Diamaro say? Nothing that we're announcing today is blue sky.
It's blue sky.
Why do you think he said that? Because pressure from the fandom. If you don't pressure Universal, they're never going to change. And that's why I think you're seeing this park kind of fall apart, because no one's willing to hold their feet to the fire. So that's kind of where I stand with it. Yeah. What say you, George?
Yeah, definitely. I echo both of, what you guys are saying, and especially since I've been to this park many times and over the years, and I've started to see it, unfortunately, kind of wither down. And this last time, it definitely shows. I will say, for the Lost Continent, even though the only thing that's in there is a restaurant, it is one very popular restaurant. The food is phenomenal.
And it looks beautiful. From the pictures, it looks absolutely gorgeous.
It is. It's a very, you talk about like an in-depth kind of immersive restaurant. You know, Mythos definitely is one of them that really takes the cake, to be honest, for me anyways. And the food on the menu is just phenomenal. I will say that if they do, you know, obviously, well, not if they do, when they do change the Lost Continent, I kind of hope in some odd way that Mythos can stay, or at least try to keep its kind of overall theme. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I will definitely miss it, you know, when it goes. But yeah, I would say I agree with Slimer. The Jurassic Park area is definitely 90s, but it doesn't show its 90s format in a good way. It shows the 90s way of it being completely outdated. The audio animatronics are honestly, of the dinos, getting to the same point that Dinosaur is at Animal Kingdom. Wow. And even though I do feel that Jurassic Park obviously is a more stronger IP and fits better for Universal than the dinos do for Disney, but I do think they need to update of kind of how Universal Hollywood has done with the mosasaur in the big tank, and adding multiple dinosaurs maybe kind of like battling it out before you take the final plunge. And also too is a land that I feel is interesting at the time when it was made, but in today's time, you know, this generation doesn't even know any of these IPs, and that's honestly Toon Lagoon. I enjoyed Dudley Do Right's Ripsaw Falls. It's a great ride. You definitely, if you want to cool down in the Florida heat, definitely ride that ride. You have Popeye and Bluto's Build Rat Barges. That's another, you know, water-based ride, which I do love how Universal took the cue to say, hey, you know what? You know, let's add 2 water rides in this park because, hey, this is Florida. You know, I wish Disney would kind of, you know, go along that same notion. But I do think in some odd shape or form that whole land, keep the same kind of ride systems, but just retheme it. And me personally, that is where I actually would put Pokemon, to be honest with you. What say you, Slimer?
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into what has to happen to Islands of Adventure in order for it to not just be on Epic Universe's level, but for it to solve the attendance drop issue that it's experienced year over year from 2023 to 2024. And the first thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to change out Toon Lagoon. And I do agree with you. That's where Pokemon should go. Now, whether that means they keep, you know, Dudley Do Right, Ripsaw Falls, and whether they keep Popeye, I don't want to get too far into, you know, armchair imagineering as to whether those should stay or whether they should go. But that is absolutely where Pokemon Island should go. Without a doubt. It's thematically, it matches that park more because that park has more to do with like fantastical ideas. Pokemon is completely fantastical. I mean, it's, you know, it's these players that have these beasts that they go in, you know, these player balls and you throw them, they come out and they fight, you know, the battle of the beasts, you know? So that's a fantastic, you know, science fiction, fantasy IP. Perfect for Islands of Adventure because that's what Islands Adventure was designed for. It was designed fantastic ideas like that. And then the second place, George, you know, you had said updating Jurassic Park. I think the second thing they need to do is look, if you're not going to update the animatronics in River Adventure because, you know, let's say the water component of the ride just doesn't justify, you know, them ripping out the animatronics, putting in all new dinosaurs, all new T-Rex. Okay. Let's go ahead and put in the big boy, and that is the Jurassic World ride over in what is it? Jurassic? What is it?
Beijing.
Put that in. Smack that right into Jurassic Park. Retheme the land to Jurassic World, and you want to see a turnout of people to go see a ride? Put that in Islands of Adventure. And this is in my opinion is the only the first two things that you should do. I got a couple of other ideas, and George, you're already tracking. We're just going to cover them, one by one. But George, what do you think about what do you think would be the stateside reaction if they brought that Jurassic World ride to Islands of Adventure? Just slap it all where Disney's Adventure was.
Because a lot of times with people in the theme park, in the theme park lore, so to speak, like us, we're geeks. We love, researching this stuff and everything. But to a normie, if they didn't know anything about what they were getting into with a Jurassic Park ride, that they're coming in with the intention of, okay, I heard it was supposed to be a water-based ride and what have you. But then when they get in it, it's like, okay, so they changed it up, and they actually physically see this gigantic audio animatronic dinosaur literally walking towards them as the vehicle was pulling back. I think honestly the the response would be like out of the roof. I think honestly that update, that wouldn't even be technically a new, well, it'd be new, but it wouldn't be a different IP. It would be the same IP, but updating the ride. I think honestly just that move alone would put IOA back on the map.
Yeah.
If they were to put the Jurassic World Beijing ride in the place, drain all the water, get it, level it out, flatten it, do whatever you need to do. I think honestly, IOA just on that, not touching anything else aside from, again, you would put Pokemon in Toon Lagoon. Obviously, I think that, they're still in talks with putting Zelda in where the Lost Continent is. But that would definitely put IOA back on the map for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That ride is considered probably the best dark ride in the entire world. And look, like that, maybe that's the way they're going to go. Maybe they're just waiting for, the right timing. They're waiting for the popularity of Epic Universe to die down, so that way, they're not stealing thunder from Epic Universe. And then the next phase after Epic Universe is going to be to bring that ride stateside. I really hope so. Crossing my fingers that that's what they do, because Jurassic Park River Adventure, it's had its day in the sun, and it's time to move on. But George, the big fish, Zelda.
That I feel, one, with the Lost Continent, really, there wouldn't really be too much that they would need to do architectural wise. I mean, obviously they would still add more thematic elements in from the game and what have you, based off of, the Zelda and the lore and everything. But I mean, they can kind of build off of what's already there. And they have lots of room to do with it, because as you mentioned, Mythos is the only thing that's there. And that way, in a way, Mythos can kind of be saved in the sense of not where it would stay as Mythos, but the type of kind of cavern, kind of, mythical kind of restaurant could stay. Obviously, they would probably update the menu that it would be more catered to the Zelda IP. But I mean, even the ties to what, a Super Nintendo World is going to do for Epic Universe, and it would definitely tie in. So, yeah, I think honestly for IOA, Zelda, Pokemon, and update to Jurassic Park, that's a really good start. Yeah,
no, absolutely. The amount of what you're doing there is you have like a multifaceted attack. You're attacking the problem from different directions, right? By bringing in a very intense dark ride that appeals to, older crowds, so like bigger animatronics, the Universal crowds that grew up with Confrontation and Jaws. Those are going to be the kind of folks that are going to talk that ride up and ride those rides, because it reminds them of old Universal. But then you're also bringing in Pokemon and you're bringing in Zelda, which are both multi-generational IPs, which are going to attract not just the international guests, but they're also popular equally with domestic guests as well.
That is true.
And so, and so by putting all this into IOA, yeah, you're really setting IOA up for, the decade past Epic Universe. And then lastly, what I would probably do, since that park has such a large um, body of water right in the middle of it, I don't I don't understand why they haven't done anything with regard to like some kind of a nighttime show, whether they incorporate drones or water effects with projection, or maybe a combination of all of them. That park, once it gets dark, kind of just dies down, and everybody just leaves and goes to watch, Sensational, or they go to Disney to watch, one of their superb fireworks shows, nighttime shows over there. But either some kind of like a nighttime show, or even like a nighttime spectacular, like Phantasmic, would be an excellent addition to keep people at Islands of Adventure once the sun goes down, keep people in the parks, because that's one thing that I feel like Disney does exceptionally well. I mean, even to the point to where like stores stay open an hour after they close, like they really want people in those parks as long as possible to spend every single penny they can. And that Universal, in my opinion, doesn't do as well. But they really need to start capitalizing on those late night lingerers, either through entertainment, or staying open later past 10 o'clock. Universal's notorious for staying, for closing at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and maybe they do that for like employee satisfaction. But if you're going to incorporate a lot of these attractions that are going to draw an intense amount of popularity and therefore attendance, then you're going to have to expand hours to accommodate the amount of guests that are going to be coming per day. So the way you do that is with entertainment spectaculars. George? What in terms of IOA would you bring in the form of entertainment that you're not seeing there now?
That's very interesting, because Universal Studios, obviously, as you had mentioned, and we have seen it together with Sensational, is, you have that classic Universal IPs. It was basically a huge water show tribute to John Williams, which, I mean, that was awesome in itself. For IOA, I would do something. See, you could easily say, like another water-based show, but then you have two of the same thing, but just in different parks, utilizing different IPs. I feel like that if they took the approach, maybe like of a nighttime, maybe like stunt spectacular kind of thing, where it's a stunt show, but it's only done at night. Kind of like using the blend of like what Disney does with Phantasmic, and then maybe how they had like the voyage of Sinbad, and the Poseidon's Fury over at the Lost Continent. But instead of having them kind of like in an indoor aspect, you put that in an outdoor perspective, like where you use lasers and lights and pyro. But then you also have this storyline where you maybe put something like in the center of the lagoon that you can kind of do like a stunt show.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And the more as you were just talking, I was listening to you, and like things just started popping in my head. Like they could probably even do like a Pokemon. I mean, because when they throw their Pokeballs, the dragons come out. The Pokemon come out, right? There's like a big flash of light, and there's fire, and they're using all sorts of like weapons against each other. I mean, that right there, you have something with that. You know what I mean? Like if you just think about it for an hour, you probably come with like 5 great ideas you could do with Pokemon.
Well, that's actually just what I was just going to say. Like, what if they utilized that space not even just for one kind of show? Like if they have multiple shows. And I know, again, that's probably being very far-fetched because it costs money to keep changing things up, but maybe like do one night you can do Pokemon, and then another night you can do maybe something with Lord of the Rings, or because I do think in time Universal really should implement Lord of the Rings somewhere in the resort. I don't know why they haven't already, but they really should. But yeah, like you can utilize that space for like multiple different show aspects. But I do like your idea, like of utilizing Pokemon, because then you're using the IP that would already be put into the park, for a nighttime spectacular, or not even a nighttime spectacular. Like, as you could even have something within the land that they maybe create like a because in the show they have like these stadiums like where they hold the Pokemon tournaments and stuff. So like if they kind of incorporated something like that, that would be really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. I think that's a great idea. And I feel like the land would probably be a little bit incomplete if they didn't have at least, you know, a Pokemon battle arena. And then over in the Lost Continent, or, you know, Hyrule side of things, a classic traditional good guy versus bad guy show, you know, where Link fights Gandalf, would be absolutely a stunner too. That thing, if you make it as good as Indiana Jones Epic Stuntacular, you know, or Phantasmic, dude,
a Super Smash Brothers stunt comedy.
Oh, yes, dude, absolutely. Oh my God, that would be hilarious, man. Like, can you imagine, like, like they have the, you know, like they have the platforms that you jump from, and that would be super funny, man. There are so many jokes you could do with that, with, you know, between like Wario and Star Fox and Metroid, and yeah, I think if you had all those characters come out in some kind of like you said, a comedy show, stunt show, yeah, that would be a riot. That would be an absolute riot.
That would be great. And kind of going back to your Pokemon idea, what they could even do if they wanted to do something at night, have performers come out with Pokeballs, and when they say a Pokemon and the Pokeball opens, you get like a flash, maybe with like a pyro or something, and then whatever Pokemon they call, it appears in the sky, but using drones.
Oh, forget it, dude. and, you know, they can all, you know, with the same thing that they've, you know, the same way that Universal's been able to capitalize on the wands in terms of revenue, they can do the Pokeballs as well.
Yeah, that is true.
It's a complete, you know, it's a revenue stream unto itself. You know, when Star Wars published, or not Star Wars, but when Disney published how many lightsabers they have sold since they started selling lightsabers when the land opened in, was it 2019? Yeah, August 29th, 28th. They've already sold, what, 2, 3, 4 million lightsabers at $130. I mean, they've already brought in like $300 million gross just in lightsaber sales alone. I mean, like, dude, that's like a big movie, dude, just in lightsaber sales.
That's like a very successful domestic film. like domestic revenue, just with that alone. Yeah, not counting other kinds of merch, not counting food offerings, not counting ticket sales. Like that, just $300 million just with sabers, excuse me. That's just damn. But I will say, like, what a like a triple threat that would be for Universal, between the Harry Potter wands, the Pokemon Pokeballs, and the Back to the Future hoverboards. I mean, they'd have gold on their hands.
Yeah. You know, I'm not really into the Pokemon, but, you know, I can see how that would be just as popular, if not more popular than the Harry Potter ones. But the hoverboard, oh man, trust me, I would have a wall of hoverboards if I had the opportunity to get a bulldog, or was it the pit bull?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want the Barbie one. I want the pit bull, man. I want the one with the little duck in the back. But yeah, that was fantastic. Fantastic discussion, George. I think that a lot of that, honestly, is going to come true. I really think like I don't want to give myself too much credit. I think that the writing's on the wall. Yeah. I think it's a matter of, you know, them doing this thing with Epic. They've already done their market analysis. I also think what's going on at Universal Studios right now is a reflection of what's to come. I think they're projecting a little bit, and they're also using it as like a little as a test bed you know, to see just how merchandisable these older IPs are and their popularity. And I think they're finding out that there's a lot of money that can still be made off of Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, and of course, you know, Pokemon and Zelda. They've never lost their popularity. They're more popular than ever. Um, but yeah, I think that it's going to happen. The one thing I don't know for sure is Back to the Future, but I think at this point, Universal kind of knows that they have to do that because that's what the fans are saying, right? Like Universal fans are absolutely vocal when it comes to the original part, but not IOA. And that goes back to what OG was saying. Like, if you're vocal, they're going to listen and they're going to make adjustments based off of the demands, you know, of the fans. And the reason that we're not getting anything with IOA, the reason that it's, you know, it's been laid bare is because nobody says anything about it. But you can look over at Universal Studios and they're giving you everything you want. They're giving you the kitchen sink. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That is true.
But IOA, not so much.
I have one last question for you because you had brought it up earlier, but we didn't really talk about it. You had mentioned Seuss Landing, which I do agree with you. It looks very outdated. You know, the audio animatronics don't work properly like they used to. They give it, you know, touch ups, you know, paint, you know, what have you. But what would you do with that space?
You know, I'm not really entirely sure. You know, they have so much invested into The Grinch Stole Christmas, and that part of the park really comes to life during Christmas. It's very popular. It's very photogenic. Does well on social media. Does well with the crowds. He's extraordinary. You know, The Grinch is extraordinarily popular over there. So I don't know if I would remove Dr. Seuss per se. But I would probably take out that Omnimover track ride that they have in there and put in something more modern, something using today's technology, just to give it, you know, a little bit of that new that part of the park is sort of lacking. But I think that's all I'd probably change if I had to go with anything right now. I'm sure if I sat here and thought about it for a couple of more minutes, I could say, oh yeah, I would change this and that and the other. But as far as just, you know, off the cuff, put in a new dark ride system and go with that. I don't think it's bad enough to remove completely. It's certainly not unpopular to remove completely, especially during the holidays. I think it's just missing some new ride tech that could at least, you know, keep it around for another 10 or 15 years until they come across, you know, an IP that probably serve better there. But George, I mean, you probably already have thought of something to replace Dr. Seuss with. What would you go with, my man?
With me, I do agree with you. I think because of the holidays and everything, the Grinch is very popular. You know, you have the Grinchmas, you know, festivities and what have you. I feel like with Seuss Landing, what the problem was that they kind of have it in the storybook form of the Dr. Seuss characters. I think if they were to update it, because I do believe we're getting a Cat in the Hat animated film, I think by Illuminations, that should be coming out soon. So I think if they update it with that and maybe like add in the Lorax and that kind of stuff, based off of the films, that might be a better approach of doing the Seuss characters. As far as not keeping them, obviously you would want to offset the land because it's more based off for the little ones, because you know you have to have some section that can kind of offset. So I would do something. I can't really honestly think of anything like at the moment, but you would want something that would be more geared towards like the younger child that's not big enough to do all the popular rides, so to speak.
Dude, yeah, you know, I've completely forgot about the Lorax. So I think we're both saying the same thing, in that the best thing to do with Dr. Seuss Land is probably to double down on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I agree with that. And if they did bring in, you know, the Cat in the Hat, and is that going to be with Mike Myers?
No, I don't believe so, because this is going to be fully animated. But Mike Myers, I don't believe, is reprising his role as the Cat in the Hat. Although I will say though, with the Cat in the Hat movie that he did, I thought it was kind of funny when he did a little nod to Hollywood, Universal, Hollywood Orlando, where he had like the brochures when, when they were going down. Oh my gosh!
Well, actually, you know what? Disregard the last hour conversation. That's all you really need to boost attendance at Iowa and USF.
Yeah, basically, it's like just added into a movie. It's like, it feels like a ride in an amusement park. You mean like at Universal Studios Hollywood?
God bless that man, dude. That guy's movies got me through so much of the 90s. It was not even funny.
Oh gosh, yeah. Mike Myers was the GOAT of like the 90s movies. Wayne's World, Wayne's World 2. What was the other one?
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers. Is it called So I Married an Axe Murderer?
Yeah, So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like him and Jim Carrey were like secretly in competition. So like, who could be the more popular manic depressive actor?
Basically, yeah. Who could do the most outrageous facial expressions and it not get stuck?
Yeah.
But Slimer, I want to thank you for joining us. But unfortunately, OG had some tech issues that he's taking care of at the moment, so he asked me to close this out. But I do want to thank you for joining us today. Any final thoughts on anything that we talked about as far as for Universal's future?
No, that was it. I think we've covered it all. Again, this has been a great opportunity for us to inform Universal creatives on how to do their jobs. You don't have to do anything outside of our recommendations here on Orange Grove 55. Everybody would be completely satisfied with it. No qualms whatsoever, as long as you execute it completely as we say. But no, in all seriousness, George, thanks again for having me on. It was a blast. I really love these armchair Imagineering discussions. I think that they're like a great little way to kind of tease out what's happening in the future, right? Like, this is what got us into theme parks, after all. And that's what we did as kids. We said, hey, what would happen if they did this and that? And we just take it to the next level and just talk about it on podcast for 2 hours. But I appreciate it, sir. As far as where you can find me, shameless plug, you guys can find me on X at SlimeSquare84.
Awesome. And of course, I'm George, the Italiano. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you could find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And as I always say, folks, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Italiano